ask you to give the biggest Washington Heights woo-woo for Mr. Marc Shaiman.
Hello, Washington Heights. So can you imagine when Lin-Manuel called me, was it last night or was it this morning, and said, buddy, I need you to do me a favor. Can you imagine the thrill of having Lin-Manuel owe you a favor? I immediately said, whatever. And he told me what this is, and I was so excited to be here because, as he mentioned, Mr. Crystal is one of my oldest friends. He literally made my film career happen. He is extremely special to me. And one of the things that Lin-Manuel has always told me when we met was that he would say, when I was a kid, which is something you just love to hear from someone, that he would be glued to the Oscars, and he would memorize all the medleys that Billy and I and our writers would create for the Oscars. So what better way to bring Billy on tonight but than with It's a Wonderful Where it's Lynn. Hello everybody. Thank you. No, please be seated. Please be seated. Thank you. Fantastic. Wow, this is unbelievable. This is really so special to be here with my dear friend Marc. Lynn, if you're watching, I hope you're feeling better. We're going to have a great time without you. And it's just, a thrill that after all of these years, that this movie still holds people's hearts and new people discover it. So it's a great feeling. Great to be here. No picketers. This is going to be fantastic. So Lynn sent me the questions that he was prepared to ask you. So
this is spontaneous.
Yeah. They're in his voice, of course. This first one says, you and I are born and raised New York. Oh, wait. It should be, you and I were born and raised New Yorkers. We're Jewish because so we're talkers. We came out here using walkers. I've been working on it.
Jewish rappers.
He wanted to talk about the New York locations throughout the whole movie. Washington Square, of course, Katz's Deli. What was that like working in New York doing that movie?
Well, it's the greatest place in the world to live. And it was so wonderfully written that our amazing director, Rob Reiner, and working on this great screenplay by Nora, and you're with an amazing cast. And when you're dealing with Bruno Kirby and Carrie Fisher and Meg and I, and then, it was so beautifully crafted. And then Rob found these beautiful locations, and our DP, the director of photography, was Barry Sonnenfeld, who became a great director in his own right, Men in Black and other things. He was our director of photography. So when you're playing this amazing love story in the places that Nora visualized, it was just perfect. I mean, you're playing opposite Meg Ryan with this amazing script, and it's fall in New York, and you're just hearing Gershwin. It was a perfect experience.
Good night, everyone. What else is there? Yeah, you know what? Because of the amazingness of the modern world, as I live upstate, and I live an hour and a half away, and so I got in the car today and I put the movie on my phone. I didn't watch it, but I listened to it, and it is as crisp and as fresh, and the script is so fantastic. It was just so much fun to listen to. And, I worked on it. I heard it a million times. We've seen the movie a million times, but I laughed out loud at every single thing and so moved at the end. I mean, how much were you involved with the actual script? I mean, you came to this as really an actor. I mean, and
Yes,
dare I say, other actors were considered before you?
Yeah, this was a real frustrating thing. I knew the script was out there. It wasn't called When Harry Met Sally. That's a whole other story. It was called Boy Meets Girl. And I knew that Rob, who was my closest friend, was seeing these other actors, all great ones. I won't mention the names. Michael Keaton, Tom Hanks, Albert Gross. And I'm going, what, you know, I didn't even know what it was about. I just knew that I was in the right age group, you know? And then finally, he called me and he said, buddy, you gotta do this movie. It's always been you. I had to see these people. I had to see them in so-and-so place. And I said, you know, fuck off. I don't want to do that. But then I got the script. It was called Boy Meets Girl. And when I read it, I thought I could bring a bunch of ideas to it. Because at that point, the script was, they were in a little bit of what they called a stall. They got it just so far and it wasn't over the line. And they came to it with all different kinds of ideas that ended up in the movie, which I was thrilled about. The thing at Giant Stadium with the wave, and we worked on the Sharper Image together with the sun chicks and ducks and geese. And I had a bunch of ideas for it, and then I was cast in the film, and then we were now looking for Sally. And this will sound like a 40s movie, you know? And then she walked in. And she came to, I remember, Rob's office and agreed with some really wonderful actresses. And there was just something about us together that clicked. He had this big table right in the middle of the office, and everyone would sit opposite me. She sat on the floor. And then so I sat down on the floor next to her, and we just sort of looked at each other and giggled, and Rob went. And so much of that movie, when you talk about it being crisp, was Rob was a great rehearser, which I love to do. That's where you find things. That's so much happened in the rehearsal period that ended up in the film, and the pace. Rob is directs like a musician. He hears what we've called the notes of the comedy, and if you look at it, every punchline is just the right way. It's the right tone. It's the right emphasis, and that really he orchestrates that kind of thing. I would have to say one of the more overlooked scenes in the movie for its craft is the phone call
Between the four of you?
between the
Oh
four
my
of us.
God.
And we were shot that on a soundstage, and we were all in different parts of the soundstage in our different sets. I was back in some little restaurant, and Meg was at home, and Bruno and Carrie were in their bed, and we did like 56 takes till he went, that's the one. And you know what? It was the first one.
Did you have something in your ear you could hear each
Yeah,
other?
you could hear, we could all hear each other. The phones were all
Because the timing is unbelievable.
Yeah, it's amazing, but you know what was stopped some of the takes? There were birds in the soundstage. And the sound man would come, why am I hearing, I'm hearing birds. And it was like these old pigeons who had been there for every movie. You know, just, I saw Jimmy Stewart. Oh, Jimmy Stewart. I shit on his head once, Jimmy Stewart. And that was causing the problem sometimes. It was so much fun. It was so much fun. But so much that's when it's great, when you can combine like the rehearsal mentality of theater and incorporate that into a film, and so many great things happen, like the Katz's Deli scene happened that way.
Well, you want to talk about that? I know we all do.
I thought we're so far away from everybody.
Should we move down?
Yeah.
Should we sit on the floor?
There you go. You're getting it, right? And this way, I'm taller. So we're in the office, and Nora's there with Rob, and Nora brings up the fact that women, maybe Rob, we should do a scene about women faking an orgasm during sex, and he got offended. Well, I'd never fake one with me, which ends up in the script. And then Meg says, I should fake an orgasm. And I went, now? And I said, yeah, like in a public place, like in a deli, a restaurant, something like that. And she goes, yeah, and I'm laughing, and she goes, yeah, I'll do as best I can. And then I said, and then we'll cut to a woman, an older woman, she'll say, I'll have what she's having. And that's how that ended up being in the movie. And I'm very proud of that, because it's now on AFI's list of frankly, my dear, I don't give a damn. It's in there, and then I'll have what she's having. So it makes you feel good. And it was Rob's mother, it was Rob's mom, who says, oh, so now we're going to shoot the scene. And we're at Katz's Deli, and Meg comes to my trailer early, and she was very upset. I don't know if I can do this. I can't do this. I don't know. I'm like, what I'm wearing, there's going to be people and all these strangers, and so that's why it's going to be really funny. It'll be great. She's actually wearing my sweater in the scene. Yeah, people, wow, it's not a big deal. But it's interesting. So now there's all the extras. You've seen the scene a lot. So all of these extras are there, and Meg walks in, and then Rob says the cameras are in position, and Rob said, let's rehearse one. So she has the first orgasm. And it's like, we're married 12 years. It's like, it's okay, but it's not what he wants for the thing. No, you're a little bit big. Another one, so tepid. Not good. So Rob said, let me show you what I want. And Rob's a big guy. So Meg sets out, he sets down opposite me. So it looked like I'm on a date with Ulysses S. Grant. And he proceeds to have an orgasm that King Kong would envy. He's pounding, yes! Pickles are flying out of the thing on the table. It's wild. And then when he finishes the thing, just as he should. All the extras applaud. And he says, buddy, come over here. I shouldn't have done that. I said, no, Meg, it's okay. You didn't embarrass him. No. I just had an orgasm in front of my mother.
Part of the craft that you talk about with Rob and the timing is, while not watching it today, but sort of, the use of the cutaways to the people in the deli, the little by little, people noticing until it's the total of that list.
Yeah. Well, Harry's the pivot because he's right opposite her. And then sometimes I would blow a tape just to hear it again. I was a younger man. And so, Harry, he's uncomfortable, he knows what she's doing, but he casts the right for the faces. There's a guy in a Yankee hat that turns around. You'll see it, you'll giggle now because I'm bringing him up. And he just does this. With a Yankee hat on, yeah. But directors, great ones like Rob, know every face, everything is important. Yeah.
All the casting in the movie, all the small parts, the faces, as you say, they're just so perfect. And then I realized today, right after that scene, Ray Charles sings, I think, Winter Wonderland, and it goes on for a while, and I was kind of surprised as I was listening. And then I realized he had to put that in there, because the audience, if you remember the first time you saw it, the audience was just...
You see, we were at a test screening, and we didn't know what we had. You never sort of know what you have. And the movie was playing great. And then the orgasm scene comes on. Now, besides porno movies, the word orgasm had never been in any movie. You never heard Gable say, frankly, my dear, I don't give a damn about your orgasm. It didn't happen. Bogart never said, Louis, this is the beginning of a beautiful orgasm. You never heard it. So when that happened, it started to build and build and build until the audience just couldn't take it. They were just screaming, no pressure. And at the end of the scene...
If you don't scream, just fake it.
Yeah. At the end of the scene, we realized Rob and I we were holding hands. Because it was so damn exciting. And he had to put in Sleigh Bells Ring. Oh, yeah, Ray Charles after that, yeah. So that's you know, you never know with these things, and now here it is all 30-something years later, we're still talking about it, and it still feels real, because people fall in love. And that's why it's an evergreen, you know, it's great. And we were just accepted into the National Film Registry at the Library of Congress.
And there's
Took me long enough.
the fabulous scenes with all the other couples in between the chapters. So wonderful.
That, the older couples, Rob got the idea for it. One of the executives at Castle Rock, Alan Horn, who later became heads of a lot of studios and still at Disney. His father told Rob this story, which is the opening story in the film of these couples. And Rob said, I'm going to use that story. And then he said, I'll use these other people. And that's, I think they're a lovely little palate cleanser for it. It makes it, you know, they're all different and they've all been together for a long time. And it's quite a beautiful approach to the film.
Should we talk about the music in the movie?
Yeah, Harry Connick is unbelievable. All right, so here's our history, which I'm so proud of. I met Mark when I was on Saturday Night Live in 1984, 85. There are older people in the audience. And Mark did special material for SNL. We did a lot of pieces together. They were a lot of fun. And he had a great sense of humor. We got to be friendly. And then after that year, when people were saying, you look marvelous, we went on tour, and I brought Mark with me, and we did musical improvisations on stage, and he underscored some of the more delicate pieces I was doing. And then Rob was coming to see me at the Westbury Music Fair. And he was saying, you know, the movie's looking great, but I want to put all these old-time love songs throughout the movie. And I said, I got the guy. I said, he's Ranger. He'll know every song. He knows the B-side of love songs. He knows the perfume Ella Fitzgerald wore. He's unbelievable. And they met, and that was Mark's first movie, was this one. And and then a guy named Bobby Colombi, who used to be the drummer for Blood, Sweat, and Tears, Bobby called Rob and said, I got the new Sinatra. He's this 22-year-old kid, right?
I think he was 21.
21, Harry Connick Jr. He's from New Orleans, plays amazing piano, he plays like Monk, and he sings like Sinatra. So then that was...
So let me pick up from there. So Rob sent me up to, Harry had a gig up in Seattle, and he wasn't famous at all. He was getting a buzz about him, but it was just him and his trio. Sent me up to Seattle to meet. And meanwhile, I was only 28, so I thought I was the whiz kid at the piano, you know? But then there's Harry, this incredible talent. So he came, you know, we talked a little, and then he came down to LA. And our first session was on a Friday. And I had worked out with Rob what all the songs would be, and what key they would be in, and what tempo they would be in, because it's got to all flow a certain way. And so I presented this all to Harry at the session, and he was like, man, don't tell me how to play. Don't tell me what tempo. And you know, the clock is ticking, and me and Rob were like, is it gonna be all right? So we recorded on Friday, but there was kind of friction between Harry and I, and that was not great. Cut to Monday. I had always listened to Frank Sinatra albums, and I wanted to be Nelson Riddle and do those kind of classic orchestrations, but I never had the chance to, nor did I have my own Frank Sinatra. Well, the scene that we were doing on Monday was with a whole orchestra, and this is why Rob and I were nervous on Friday, because it was one thing with just the trio to go back and forth, but with an orchestra, you prepare, and it's got to be recorded right away. You can't really futz around with it so much. So we were a little scared about that. So it was the first New Year's Eve scene, And that was the song that got me the job when I suggested to Rob I could write a book, because the last lyric is, then the world discovers as my book ends how to make two lovers of friends. And you and Meg look at each other and
Sort of do a hesitant kiss. Yeah.
so I get up on the conductor's stand and I'm about to hear this orchestration like I've never had a chance to write. And Harry's in the booth behind me. You know, he's in a glass booth back there. And I'm conducting, and Harry starts singing, if they ask me, and like Harry Connick Jr. And I turned around, still conducting. And we looked at each other, and it was a love affair from that moment on.
And you know, the album went platinum.
Then we were so lucky that for some reason in the deals that they made of the music that's in the movie, Ella Fitzgerald, Louis Armstrong, Ray Charles, luckily for Harry and I, they didn't have the rights to use it on a soundtrack album. So Bobby Columbia from Columbia, Bobby Columbia from Columbia, he said to Harry, if you guys want to go off and make a record, we'll give you a couple of bucks. And make a record and we'll call it like Music Inspired by Harry Met Sally. And that record completely changed our lives.
Yeah, and the arrangement for It Had to Be You, which in the movie I run to her, is Sinatra. Because when you're in love, you run to Sinatra. That arrangement became my theme song on the Oscars when I was hosting the Oscars. And that's what I would walk out to every night because it meant this movie means so much to me. And our relationship means so much to me. That whenever I would go walk out there, it felt like, you know, a little bit of Harry was walking out with me at the same time. It was always great.
I always want to tell this one other story about when Billy was talking about when I played for him on tour. I've told you this, I think you didn't maybe even think I was serious. He changed my life one night. The first time I played for him in Atlantic City, my mother used to always say, Mark, have a banana, eat a banana. The banana thing just drove me insane. I mean, truly, like, you don't hate your mother, but whatever that feeling is close to it, I have for many, many years. So Billy's on stage and he starts imitating his aunt and he says, I buy fruit and nobody eats. And the audience exploded in laughter, and I swear to you, the molecules in my body changed. I was like, oh, everyone, oh, it wasn't you. I completely changed my relationship with my mother. So I always say thank you for that. What was it like when you were filming that scene running and knowing, oh my God, I'm filming a scene running in a rom-com, that classic kind of...
Well, I started in the Village, and I ended up in LA, where we ended up... Run, Forrest, run. But when you're running to Meg Ryan, you keep running. It was several different places, and it was a great night. But then we shot a New Year's Eve ending here, and something about it didn't work. So then we were out in Los Angeles, and Rob said, I want to reshoot the ending. And he said, he doesn't know what's missing. And so I wrote most of the last speech. I love, that you get a little crinkle in your nose, etc. And I improvised some of it, and what you'll see in the movie is the first take. And, but that was what, working with the director who understands you and what you can bring to it, and they give you room, then that's the best that you could hope for. And just on an inside thing, Rob and I, at that time in our lives, we were Harry and Sally. No, it's true. He was going through a painful divorce, and he would call me up constantly. We would be always on the phone as I would try to talk him down. And those scenes where they're in separate beds together and they're watching Casablanca, that was us. And there's lines that we would say. He says, "I think I must have a head. It's a tumor." I said, "Yeah, there's these 24-hour tumors. They're going around." And it's in the movie. So when you think about it, don't think about Meg. Think about big, sweaty, bald Rob in bed. But I'm thrilled that you all are here, honoring this movie and doing great by this theater and for Lynn. So keep loving this movie. Tell your kids about it. There's something about this film that just keeps growing and growing, and I tell you, for all of us, it's a thrill to be part of something that means something to people. And I just want to say, if you're feeling sad and lonely, there's a service I can render. Call the one who loves you only. I can be so warm and tender. Call me. Don't be afraid to just call me. Maybe it's late to just